Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar organized by ECIIA, the European Confederation of Institute of Internal Auditors, on key EU updates for Chief Audit Executive in the banking sector. This is the first webinar of a new series that we have decided to launch, where we would like to share with the community what is ECIA doing with the European regulator in the different sector. So this one is about the banking sector, and we hope that you will enjoy the discussion of today. Before introducing the different speakers, let me share with you some logistic details. So during the webinars, we are going to ask your opinion at different occasions, and for that we will use Slido. So you can connect to Slido via your laptop, or you can just read the QR code that appears on the screen with your phone and interface with us and give us your answer and your input. We will also use Slido for the Q&A session that is planned at the end of the webinar. So don't hesitate to type your questions when you have them during the course of the webinar. And last but not the least, as you know, this is a 1-hour webinar, so you can be granted a CPE for one. And for that, you will be requested to fill in your information and your details at the end of the webinar, but also through Slido. So Slido is very important for exchanging with us over this upcoming hour. So now let me introduce to you the two representatives of the ECIIA Banking Committee, Virpi Florinen. So Virpi is the chair of the ECIIA Banking Committee. She has been the chief audit executive of Nordea for a few years, and she will join ING Group as from June the 1st to become the chief audit executive of ING. So VP, welcome, and interesting to have someone between Finland and Amsterdam. So that's very interesting in terms of location. Next to her, we will have Paco, so Francisco Martinez Garcia, who is currently the Chief Audit Executive and Deputy General Manager at Bankinter Group, located in Madrid, in Spain. But he is also a member of the ECIIA Banking Committee. So Paco, thank you for your time and support, and welcome to this webinar. So I suggest that we start now with a small introduction by VP about the activity of the ECIIA Banking Committee and also the sharing on the plans that we have for this year. So VP, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pascal. I hope my audio works okay.
Yes, but we don't see you.
Okay, hopefully it's coming soon. Maybe it's just a slow connection.
Perfect, it is.
Okay, super.
The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Pascal. And very good afternoon, everyone, from my behalf as well. And I would like to start by sharing some of the highlights of today's agenda. So if we can go to the agenda page, please. And I will be giving you a quick introduction so that you know what to expect from this event today. I will soon be giving an update on what are the topics that our banking committee is currently discussing and working with. And after that, my colleague Paco will give you a brief and high-level update on the key regulatory developments that our committee is following up closely. And then we will dive deeper into the topic of DORA. We are looking forward to hearing your experiences in that session, and we will be hearing from ECB as to what are their current expectations when it comes to DORA. And after that, we will have a session where we will be discussing what have we already learned about best practices when it comes to auditing DORA. And throughout this session, we would really like to keep this very interactive. So please do provide your input via Slido and ask questions and give your comments, because that will be the best way for us to learn from each other as well. So if we then go to the next slide, where we have listed some of the key activities that the Banking Committee is doing at the moment. And I would like to start by highlighting what our Banking Committee's purpose really is, because our purpose is actually to be your voice. We are the consolidated voice of all of the auditors working in the banking sector in Europe. And we work with key regulatory developments. We engage in frequent dialogue with different regulatory bodies in Europe. And in this dialogue, we also advocate for good audit practices in the industry. So we are here to represent you. And because of that, we want to engage more frequently with you as well, as Pascal was mentioning. You probably know that we arrange annually a banking forum event, usually during the autumn. And that has been our main point of contact with you, but we will be organizing more of these shorter webinars as well. Okay, so what are the key themes that we are discussing then in the Banking Committee at the moment and with the ECB? We have for a long time engaged in dialogue with the ECB when it comes to their expectations on internal audit. We have wanted to learn and understand this better. And as you all know, there is a new ECB guide on internal governance and risk culture that has been out for consultation. And we know that ECB is carefully now reading those comments and input and feedback that they have received regarding the content of that document. And we, of course, have been engaging in this process as well. We have provided our consolidated input and we have engaged in dialogue. I will soon be sharing with you what our key comments to that guidance was. But the other topics that we are discussing as well include, for example, the validation work that we as internal auditors are expected to perform when ECB raises some findings on our institutions. And this is quite a big and complex topic with a lot of different practices and a process that presents all kinds of opportunities, but also some challenges for us in internal audit function, including questions such as, is it really fully clear to us what the ECB thoughts are on what is sufficient to close the finding? How can we ensure that we are on the same page with the regulator? And how do we get clarity in a timely manner whether ECB agrees with our decision to either close or reject a finding? We are also discussing a popular topic of, can the third line rely on the work of the second line under certain circumstances, and how to best agree these practices? So what we will be working on is first internally in the committee, clarifying our thoughts on how this process could and should work. And then we will engage also with the ECB to hear their views and thoughts on this reliance and coordination. And last but not least, we have also started a dialogue on the process for managing internal audit-related findings, because we also receive findings from the ECB, and these can come in different shapes and forms. They can come from different types of supervisory activities, which will require us to have dialogue with our own JST teams as well, in terms of what are the key processes for internal audit and what should they look like more holistically, and then how these individual remarks from these individual inspections then fit that big picture. So that is a new dialogue that we have just recently initiated as well. If we then move on to the next page, you will see and hear what our consolidated input has been on this really interesting ECB guide on internal governance and risk culture. First of all, I think the key point for us has been that it should be clear whether this guidance is binding and mandatory for everyone to follow, or is it more a guidance and a starting point for discussion? And then when it comes to IIA standards, we of course all have probably built our methodologies around the global IIA standards, and we felt that it is really important that the guidance actually acknowledges those standards and that we are building our frameworks around those standards. When it comes to governance, we had a few comments there. Firstly, that there are different governance models for banks in the Europe. So that needs to be somehow reflected in the guide, in our opinion. And we also paid attention that we wanted to be ensured that the confidentiality and the independence of the chief audit executives is safeguarded when it comes to their one-to-one dialogues with the board audit committee chairs, for example, because the guidance was a little bit indicating that the content of those kind of dialogues should be reported to a wider audience. And one important point for us has been that there really should be flexibility on the audit cycle approach to truly ensure that the cycle can operate on a risk-based approach, which means that not everything is covered every year, and that emerging risks might arise that would require us to sometimes skip something from the cycle to be able to focus our efforts on something more urgent. And then maybe finally, and a bit more overall comment from us has been that we wish that the guidance is less descriptive in certain parts and throughout the document, so that it provides a principle, but gives also some flexibility for us on how to interpret it and implement it as well. So we have provided these comments in writing, but then we've also had a chance to have good and really constructive dialogue with ECB as well on these. And we know that they are looking into the feedback and then deciding what and if changes to the content will be done. But now I would like to hear from you. So now that you have heard what kind of topics we are discussing and working on in the Banking Committee, we would love to hear from you through Slido. Are there some topics that you would like us to engage in that we haven't maybe mentioned here, or if you have any other feedback or wishes regarding the agenda of the Banking Committee, now it is your chance to give us those suggestions. And while you are typing your suggestions here, we are going to discuss your input next week in the Banking Committee meeting. So in a quite timely manner, we will be addressing your thoughts here. And I can see a lot of interesting topics coming up, and AI is leading the chart at the moment. And as some of you might know, we started the discussions on AI in the banking forum last autumn, and this of course is a topic that is moving really fast, and I do fully agree that we need to continuously stay on top of it. I can see DORA, ESG reporting, risk management, deregulation. That is a really interesting topic and quite hot topic as well. We know that some other parts of the world are deregulating, and we also feel a lot of regulatory pressure in Europe. So I think that's an interesting topic. I can also see cybersecurity coming up with some other ICT topics here. Regulatory fatigue and ineffectiveness I can see here as well. Thank you very much. On-site inspections, and it could be that we are in a way already engaging in dialogue with ECB on these. But thank you so much for providing these comments. We will save them all, and we will be discussing them next week when we meet with the Banking Committee, and you will then hear from us. I think with that, I will hand over to Paco for a brief regulatory update and then some deep dives into DORA. And stay tuned, because we will be asking for your input on some DORA questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Virpi. Hello, everyone. As Virpi mentioned, let's do a very quick review of the latest news from the European regulators and supervisors. We have divided those news in three sections. The first one is related to ESMA. many of you know, on February 14, ESMA launched a common supervisory action, and together with national regulators across the European Union, have initiated a joint review of retail fund management companies and alternative investment managers, with the aim of ensuring that these entities have established effective internal audit and compliance function with adequate personnel, authority, knowledge, and experience to perform their functions and fulfill their responsibilities properly and independently. The objective is to strengthen oversight in the sector and promote the convergence in the supervision of fund management. And ESMA will publish a final report with the results of the exercise in 2026, and which could lead to recommendations for the sector. The second topic is related to ESG risk. ESG has been a key topic during last years, and the banking sector has been impacted in priority with many directives regarding the environmental, but also social and governance, as you can see in this slide. The EBA has defined initiative in this area and is currently reviewing the guidelines on ESG scenario, where they specify the role expected from internal audit. Maybe Pascal, can you move forward a slide, please? Yeah, these are the different initiatives that EBA has defined, as I mentioned before, and well, you know that they are reviewing the guidelines on ESG, and well, they are specifying a role for the internal auditors. You can see here that as the third line, the internal audit function should provide an independent review and objective assurance of the quality and effectiveness of the overall internal control framework and systems in relation to the ESG risk, including the first and the second lines and the governance framework of these risks. So, but currently, as maybe you have heard, the European Commission has confirmed at the end of February a plan to revisit the key ESG regulations. Basically, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the famous CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD, and the European Union taxonomy. The objective is to reduce the scope of the directives. Basically, they try to impact in less company. Another objective is to simplify the reporting, reducing the information, the data points to report, and another important objective is to postpone the implementation by 2 years for the organization that not impacted yet. As you know, the proposal is discussed right now at the European Parliament and in the Council, and the Council recently validated the freeze of any new initiative in the 100 coming days. This is a story that we should follow up in the coming months. And finally, the third topic is related to the ECB supervisory priorities. As every year, the ECB has published the key supervisory priorities for the period of 2025 to 2027. Many domains where internal audit has a role to play to assist the bank. As you know, most of you know that the main priority, the first priority, is that the bank should strengthen their ability to withstand the immediate macrofinancial threats and severe geopolitical shocks. The second priority is remedy persistent material shortcoming in an effective and timely manner. And the third priority is to strengthen the digitalization strategies and tackle emerging challenges stemming from the use of the new technologies. I know, I understand that you all know them, all these news, but I think that I hope that this brief update has been helpful to remind you that what are the main focus of the supervisor in the coming months. And now let me move forward to the main topic of the session of this webinar, that is the DORA implementation. And to do this, we will have two exceptional guests who, from different angles, will give us their opinion on the implementation of DORA. Maria Hulbert from the ECB and Sonia Suder from the Societe Generale. But first of all, as I see that you have seen that, I would like to ask you at what stage of implementation of DORA are our institutions, and the challenges for the internal audit. We have here three questions of three different scenarios. I see that most of the entities are answering the same, basically the same. Well, taking your responses into account, we can say that DORA implementation is a process that is proving difficult and challenging, even though all banks are making our best efforts to implement this new regulation as soon as possible. But I see that most of us are having difficulties, and we are aiming to comply with the regulation by year end. And now, please help me to complete the second question. That is, I would like to know what have been your key challenges in auditing DORA. It's difficult to audit a major implementation that is still in progress. The audit is not available for audit due to resources being tied into the implementation. Maybe the second line of defense is actively covering this topic, resulting in overlap with the third line. Well, I see that majority of the entities are having difficulties in auditing implementation that is still in progress. Well, I think that based on your answers and regarding the challenges this new regulation poses for the internal audit function, we see that most of the banks find it difficult to audit because significant implementation that is still in progress is difficult to audit. Okay, at this point, let me introduce you to Maria Hulbe. Hi, Maria. Welcome.
Hello,
Maria,
good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Maria Hulbe is the head of the non-financial risk division at the ECB within the Directorate General Horizontal Line Supervision. Currently, she leads a team of international and highly qualified managers and experts on governance, risk management, AML, operational risk and resilience, ICT, and fintech. That's all. Maria has developed her career in the field of banking, supervision, and regulated, and she joined the SSM from 2014, at the very beginning of the system. I don't think there is anyone at the ECB better qualified to help us resolve the some of our concerns. And I would like to thank you very much for participating in this webinar. I want to thank Maria for her availability and her kindness. Whenever we have asked her for her collaboration, she always offered it to us. So thank you. And I know that you are very busy and don't have much time, but I would like to ask you to just two questions that I'm sure the audience will be very interested in. Well, as everybody knows, DORA requirements started to apply as of 17 January this year. It seems that many banks have communicated quite openly regarding the challenges to meet all the requirements by that date, as we have seen in our previous poll. It indicates that banks are struggling with the implementation. Maria, can you share with us and the audience what is the focus for ECB during this early stage of implementation of these requirements in the banks?
Very good. I hope that you can hear me, Paco.
Yes, I hear you very well. Thank you.
Very good. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I think for us, it's really this forum a good opportunity to have. I think I mentioned before to have an exchange with you. Sorry, I see a bit of echo. I don't know if this comes from me. And really to have a supervisory dialogue and to discuss about common themes. And of course, DORA is a very relevant and hot topic for us at the ECB also. No? So I thought when I was discussing with you and a bit with Pascale on this and on the preparation of this, that I would focus first a bit on what we are doing internally at the ECB, because I think once you understand a bit more what is, let's say, our internal focus, I think it would help you to understand a bit more on our thinking, no? And before doing that, I wanted to just explain or share with you 3 documents that I don't know whether the internal audit community is familiar with, but I think might be helpful for you to think. The first one is one letter or one document that was issued by the ESAs, okay, in relation to the one application on DORA application, no? And somehow I think the message that it conveys there, this document is publicly available. I'm sure that most of you have read it, and I'm happy to share it with Pascale also, so that you have it. And I think the bottom line here is DORA is applicable as of the 17th of January, and there is no transitional period, no? And I think probably we have discussed about it several times, and I think it covers a bit what are the key areas of focus that both the 3 DSAs, the prudential supervisors, and the banks should look at. No, and I think it's worth a reading. Then, in addition to this, there are 2 letters that the JSTs, I think, have sent to all significant institutions, okay, which somehow highlight also a bit the areas of focus and things that the bank should have in mind. No, I think one of the letters was sent in September 2024, and another letter has been sent a bit recently, okay, and I think it might be good for you to have a look at these 2-pager or 3-pagers because I think it's helpful on our thinking. And somehow the things that I will come back now or that I will share with you, I think they are included there, no, on that. So whenever we think about DORA, I always think, and that's a bit how we structure our internal thinking about the 5 main blocks that DORA has. No, I think the first one, let's say, could be around ICT risk management. The second one around ICT incidents. Okay, the third one about testing, then third-party providers, and then oversight framework. No, and I would like to go a bit into the details on what are the activities that we are doing at the ECB in each of them. Okay. So I think the first one, which is in relation to ICT risk management, the first thing that I would like to highlight, especially for the banking industry, is that of course DORA is new, and of course there are things that are new, okay? But what I think what it's mainly, and somehow this is the message that we are trying to convey, is that what DORA does also, it brings to level 1 tests some of the things that were already there. And again, not everything, and the devil is on the details, no? But I think this is a message that we really want to convey on that, and the starting point from many institutions is not the same, okay? And I think, of course, in the banking sector in general, given that we already have the EBA guidelines, the situation is a bit different, and you in general are better placed to face DORA than maybe some other financial institutions are, no? Because there was a bit of a framework before. So what we have done in relation to ICT risk management is that in this preparatory phase, before, we have updated all our internal methodologies. No? So now whenever we do a SREP, whenever we do an on-site inspection, whenever we do whatever it is, a deep dive horizontal analysis or things like that, we will always do under the new DORA framework. No? And in doing that, we have updated, you can imagine, all the manuals that we might have, no? And of course, we have also updated the IT risk questionnaire, which is the tool that we use, let's say, as the basis for the IT risk supervision. No, now all of this is fully in place, and whenever we go out, okay, so whenever the horizontal or the JSTs go into the bank and do any kind of supervisory activity on that, this is under the new DORA framework. Okay, so this is a bit the first thing that we have done. If we move to the ICT incidents, okay, I think you know, you might be very familiar that the previous reporting framework that we had is that for what we call significant cyber incidents, banks needed to report it either to the ECB or to the national competent authorities, depending whether there was a national regulation in place, those significant incidents. DORA established an amended framework of that. Okay, first of all, let's say the reporting flows are different. Okay, so now always significant institutions need to report to the NCAs, which then immediately share with the ECB that, and also the incidents that are shared are different. First of all, because they are not only cyber incidents, they are all significant or material ICT incidents and not just cyber, and then the definition on what needs to be sent or not is different. Okay, so of course one of the big focus that we have had in preparatory phases is to prepare for that, to prepare all the reporting mechanism to ensure that we have this flow of information between NCAs and ECB, to make sure that we have the reporting then to the ESAs on that, and of course on the definition of that. And then the current focus that we have currently is to make sure that we receive whatever needs to be received. Okay, and on this, I think this could be a bit of a focus in the coming months also. And probably also some figures that might be relevant for you, the number of incidents that we are receiving. And I guess, of course, this is the same in your institution. So then the number of incidents, of course, that you would need to share with the national competent authorities has increased, I would say, significantly. Okay, so I think just to give you a bit of some numbers, I think in general what we were receiving in 22 was a bit of an, let's say, a different year, but in 23 and 24 was around 140, 150 incidents per year. The number of incidents that we have received in Q1 2024 is already 244. Okay, so I think, of course, this has a lot of things. We might have received things that we might not need to receive, and so I think you might have false positives or false negatives in that sense. I think it's extremely important that this reporting is done properly, and this is something that, of course, we want that the banks focus on that. Okay, and then the other area where we are also focusing as prudential supervisors is on this new EU SCIF. Okay, I don't know if you are familiar with this, but just that you know that this is a pan-European framework for coordination in case of systemic crisis. Okay, so this is somehow a coordination framework among authorities, and for us, of course, we are part of it. So this is also something that we are clearly looking at. So again, this reporting from the institution is a key area where we would like also, of course, the banks to focus at. If I move to the third block on the testing, okay, you know that, of course, DORA, one of the big novelties of DORA is the threat-led penetration testing. Of course, previously we had the Tiber EU, but that was a voluntary framework, and we didn't have the advanced testing as a compulsory supervisory tool and something that needs to be done. So, of course, we have had a big focus on that also. We are implementing the internal processes that this is required for this. And in one of these letters also, what we are telling the banks is that the list of which institutions will go through threat-led penetration testing this will be communicated as soon as possible. Okay, so I think, of course, all the preparation for the banks in order to be able to undergo this test, this is something that needs to be done because, of course, this require, well, a lot of, let's say, manpower, a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge. No, and I think also one of the challenges that I think probably all of us will be facing here is around the challenges to make sure that we all attract resources on that and skilled resources to be able to perform this on a regular basis. Okay, so clearly this is an area of focus on our side. I think on the third topic, which is managing ICT third-party risk, I think again this is a bit similar to the first one on ICT risk management. There was already some regulation there and guidelines there. So what we have done really is again to update all our new methodologies to make sure again that whenever we go there, this is done according to DORA standards and regulation. And then we also have here the new outsourcing is not outsourcing anymore, the new register of third-party contracts. Okay, and of course, this is critical for two things for us. First of all, as a management tool to make sure that banks properly manage and identify and monitor third-party risk. Of course, this is extremely important and identify what is there. But I think this is also an extremely important tool because this will be used to identify which are the third-party providers that are defined as critical under DORA and they're subject to the oversight framework. Okay, so I think clearly the accuracy, completeness, and everything of this third-party, I don't remember now the name, the third-party data collection or wherever it is, I think is extremely important, and this is very challenging for this year for the timelines that we have. Okay, because I think, of course, DORA enter into force. I think the submission deadline is April, I think, and the contracts need to be done, or the reference date is March. So we are very aware that this year there is very limited time for the banks to be able to provide that, but this is the timing that we have because of the implications it has for the designation of critical third-party providers. Okay, so I think it's important that you have that in mind. And then the last point I think that I wanted just to highlight, I think on the oversight framework, of course, we have been supporting the ESAs and involved in all the regulatory developments and frameworks. As now as competent authorities, we will need to contribute also to the oversight framework. So we are organizing ourselves on how we will be able to do it. And I think here, one point that I think is important to convey, and I think you as internal auditors, I hope that we can, let's say, all work together on this, is that it's extremely important that banks do not think that because there is an oversight framework, okay, they will control the third-party risk and I do not need to do it anymore. No? So somehow this complacency risk, it should not be there. The banks still need to manage the risk. We still need to supervise ICT risk, and the oversight framework need to do whatever they need to do for the critical third-party providers. Of course, we need to coordinate all of this, no? And also that creates additional complexities on that. But I think it's important that this point of the complacency of, now we have this and we can rely on that. I think that's extremely important. And then just the last point, Paco, that I wanted to highlight is more in the context, thinking a bit about dependencies, no? In the current context and the current environment that we have with all the geopolitical risk and geopolitical tensions, I think it's extremely important to at least to identify what are the risks, what are the dependencies. I think this is extremely important, at least as a first point. And I know that there will be some challenges in how to address concentrations or not, very big debates about it, but I think the starting point of identify what are the critical dependencies, I think is critical that we do that. Okay. I hope that this gives you a very high level, but a bit view of where the ECB is looking at. I cannot hear.
Paco, you are on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, thank you for sharing your views, Maria. So I agree entirely with you that the review of contracts of third parties is been a very challenging process for the banks currently. So, and now the second question, Maria, what will be the next step for the ECB, and when do you expect to carry out the first DORA-related supervisory activities, such as thematic reviews or on-site inspections?
Yeah. So I think, as I mentioned, DORA is applicable as of the 17th of January. Okay, what we were not planning to do for 2025 is a DORA compliant exercise. Okay, I mean horizontally. It could be that an individual JST wants to do something for idiosyncratic risk or because it's part of their supervisory strategy, no? But from a horizontal point of view, we were not planning to do this. What does this mean? Okay, what it means is that all the JSTs, whenever they do this rep this year, they will do it under DORA. It means that the targeted reviews that are pending on outsourcing or cyber hygiene measures, the legal framework now will be DORA. Okay, so any on-site inspections around the area of IT will be on-site inspections under DORA. Okay, so I think this is a bit how we are tackling the DORA related. Having said that, okay, and I think this is a question that we are receiving frequently. Okay, are we going to do any kind of horizontal DORA related thing? Okay, I think the first answer, and again, as I mentioned, for 2025, we are not planning to do that. Okay. Having said that, I think what is extremely important and what we do expect from all the banks to have, and I think all the banks have it, is to have proper action plans on how to implement DORA. No, I think we were already aware of it, but I think the first question that you raised in the Mentimeter, I think was very illustrative of this. So I think you have a number of banks aiming to be compliant with DORA, well, a number 65%, 60, 70, around that. Some banks that are long way to be compliant, 24% of the banks, and fully compliant around 11%. Okay. So I think we do not plan, I mean, DORA is enforceable as of the 17th of January. Having said that, I think you should not expect an inspector or a JST or a horizontal knocking on your door and enforcing it on the 18th of January. What you should expect and what we could expect as supervisors is that all institutions have a proper action plan saying, okay, this is DORA requirements and this is where I stand. Okay, and what is the criticality of the gap? Okay, based on how far I am from DORA and based on how relevant and how critical this is for me, and to have a proper timeline to address the things and to discuss with the supervisor on that. And I think this is something that a number of JSTs will do. Okay, and it will also depend on how relevant the different topics are for you, no? And you might expect that maybe the JSTs would or the supervisor would knock on your door, maybe not for a full 100% DORA compliant exercise, but on some specific aspects, no? And then based on, let's say, the comprehensiveness of this action plan, or based on the reliability or the timeline that you provide, if you tell the supervisor, I mean, this will be done too late, or things that you should have already done, okay, because they were already there, they were already at the ABA guidelines, but still there is some time to take. I think then you should expect, yes, to be used this as a let's say a starting point of the dialogue, and maybe a JST thinks that they need to take more intrusive action vis-a-vis the bank, okay, for a specific reason. So I don't know if that answers. Of course, we are always thinking what we will do next for 2026 or for 2027, but so far I think we do not have a horizontal, let's say, activity on that.
I think it's a very good news that we do not expect to have an inspector knocking our door in 2025. It's very good. Thank you, Maria, for your time and for your answers. I know that you must leave our meeting to attend our commitments, so thanks again. And now I give the floor back to Virpi. Okay. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you very much, Paco.
Thank you very much.
So now then, we have heard from all of you through the polls where you are when it comes to implementation of DORA. We have heard from you that it is actually really challenging to audit something that is still being implemented. And we've now also heard from the ECB regarding their approach and expectations. And now we saved for the last part of this session a discussion on how to actually audit DORA, because that seems to be a challenge for us. So we are really happy to have Sonia Sudre from Societe Generale with us today, and she will be sharing her learnings when it comes to auditing DORA. Sonia is the group head for IT audit at Societe Generale, and she has 25 years of work experience in the financial sector. She has been working in non-audit roles as well and non-IT roles as well, such as, for example, being the head of money market and treasury operations. She has been working in internal audit for 9 years now, and for 1 year in her current role. So warm welcome to you, Sonia. We are very happy to have you. So Sonia, as we have been discussing today, many banks are still in the process of implementing various DORA requirements, and therefore I think both the timing of the internal audits as well as the scope to choose can be actually quite challenging. You have in your role been working on planning the audit approach for DORA and also supervising audits related to DORA already. So based on your experience, we would love to hear from you on what are the key learnings from your audit approach in terms of which aspects of DORA are easier to audit already now, and which are those areas that are more challenging from implementation and audit perspective.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my insights. Also, it's early stage also for us. We decided to initiate early audits, meaning end of last year and beginning of this year. Also, we raised a lot of concern for the auditees. They were concerned not to be ready yet. And as the discussions evolved, they were really more comfortable to have the audit so that we could provide independent opinion on the implementation steps that they are taking today, and also looking at the overall design. And our primary objective on the audit was really to verify that the approach to DORA is comprehensive. And this includes the ensuring that all relevant stakeholders, including the management body, are engaged at the appropriate levels. So three key learnings. The first one is that there are easy area or the first one to start with to review. It's one area stand out is a register of information, as Maria mentioned, that is expected to be submitted to the regulator in April 15. Where we can play a crucial role here is to review accuracy and completeness of this register, because it's quite key, as Maria was explaining, and and we can compare it to internal contract reference and invoices. So, for example, another straightforward area is incident classification and reporting. Because the implementation has started fully in January 17. The requirements are very clear, to be honest, and while the time frame is very tight for gathering example, a review of the incident for me is essential. So those initial audits have provided us with valuable exposure to DORA requirements, and it was the start of our journey. The main challenge that we had during the audit was reviewing the scope. And also the criticality associated to it. So what the challenge is that the scope has to be, I would say, consistent with the DORA regulation, not too narrow, not too large, also to be focused on the right activities. And also the processes sometimes are really intertwined. So when to start, when to to stop, even though it's and for the mapping, it was sometime requiring us to cross different referential around the bank. So the mapping part of activities and also providing a view on the scope was quite difficult. It requires also IT audits to work with business audits, most probably. The third learning is to reassure everyone is that we have the skill sets because as auditor, we already audit business continuity, risk management framework, governance. And as IT auditor, we already audit vulnerability management, capacity management, crisis management. So we have the skill set. There are some very few, there are things that are new and we will learn doing our audits. But we can already leverage on a lot of things that we know how to do. To further our capabilities, our lead auditor has undergone a specialized training and received a certification from the Professional Evaluation and Certification Board in DORA. It was a good way for the missions to have one people understanding well the DORA requirements. Something to leverage on, probably.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I think a lot of interesting points. Based on your learning, it's definitely possible to audit DORA already, but you just need to be a bit smart which aspects to choose. And I think the point about the skills is of course really important as well. Based on the discussions we've had today and also how you explained your DORA audit approach, is that DORA is of course a really big topic to audit. So what kind of approach have you taken in terms of that? Do you have some kind of a multi-year audit strategy to ensure that you cover all the aspects of DORA within some kind of a cycle? Or do you aim to do quite massive single audits covering huge aspects of DORA at one go?
Thank you for the question. We initiated early audits to be able to build empirical knowledge around DORA and also helping us to shape what could look like a multi-year audit cycle. In crafting a multi-year audit plan, we are adopting a comprehensive strategy which integrates different key components. The first one is compliance review, and we're trying to break down the DORA requirement in manageable pieces to mitigate the audit risk. This involves considering regulatory deadlines and focusing on key areas. So it can be, as I was mentioning, register of information, for example. So really looking at the main milestone. The second component is the transversal processes because DORA, most of the time you already have existing processes and it will be adapting the existing processes to answer better to the DORA requirements. So our approach here is to have audit on transversal processes and looking at whether they have well integrated the DORA requirements. To complete, because it's not enough, we have a third component, which is deep dive audits. So looking at the value chain, so end-to-end value chain processes that will involve business audits and IT audits, and also activating the audit clause for the third-party providers as part of vital activities, for example. For me, one of the challenges is to build a holistic view on that, incorporating in the approach, engaging in the approach both business and IT audits because it requires both competencies, and also all the main topics to be covered comprehensively. So that would be how I would tackle the DORA requirements.
Thank you very much, Sonia. One thing that that comes to my mind is that DORA is a little bit, wide topic. It is here and there. It involves third parties. It involves incidents and so on. A lot of different things. That might mean that the audit functions might need to organize themselves somehow around DORA as well. For example, deciding which teams are the teams that are auditing DORA. Maybe some aspects could be covered by third parties or external auditor, and maybe in some cases we might need to think how we divide the work between the third and second line of defense. What are your learnings so far in terms of what is the role of audit here, and what is the role of the other players?
From my perspective, it doesn't change the second line and third line of defense in terms of way of working. Probably might clarify the how we review the third party providers in terms of organization. What I'm contemplating, it's really to multiply the pool audits. One, because it's quite heavy, DORA, and we can be more effective probably to join our first in audits. So leveraging an organization like CCAG, so Collaborative Cloud Audit Group, already gathering a lot of EU financial institutions. It will reduce the cost and also allow to have competencies, even though we can adjust and look at control for our own setup. Probably it's worth mentioning because also for the third party provider, it would be one audit for a group of financial companies. Integration of existing audit reports like ISAE 34.0A or SOC 1, SOC 2, it's part already of our risk assessment when we take into account the results. It's a good start, but it's not enough. So we need to have thorough audits on our third party. And when it's come to the part on the thread-led penetration testing, one, I think it's really new in terms of, it's quite new, and it's a lot of requirements for an audit function. So either you have the skill set and you can put the condition on to participate, or and for me it will be more LOD1, so the first line of defense, looking at having those kind of tests performed by external provider and us as an audit, reviewing the condition on which the testers are operating, if they have the good competencies, and also the data confidentiality part, which is essential. So
Thank you very much, Sonia. I can see that time is really running. So Pascal, just wanted to check if we have received any questions or comments that we would like to address before we end our session today. There is a question for Maria. I'm not sure whether Maria is with us anymore because I think she had a busy schedule, but we could definitely take this question with us and continue our dialogue with ECP on this topic as well. There is a question, isn't there a possibility to reduce DD and monitoring activities over critical service providers, or do we need 4,000 separate monitorings on one critical provider? Any reflections, Sonia, on this one?
I think probably with we're still not completely mature on that, and it will be a learning journey. And at the end, probably we will go through pooling audit with critical provider. Exactly. I don't see other way.
Yeah. Okay, super. Thank you so much. I think for the last minute that we have here, I just wanted to convey the key messages that I think, the interesting points that we learned today. I think the statistics were really interesting. Only 11% of the institutions represented here today are already compliant with DORA, and around 65% will aim to be by the end of year. I think that is quite good. If within this year majority will be compliant, but of course there are some that are a long way to comply. And then also it was interesting to see how challenging our community has found auditing DORA. We have now learned some examples how that can be done. There are definitely areas that might be ready for audit, and so hopefully you have received some food for thought in there. And then what we learned from ECB, no thematic inspections expected this year, but ECB has created a methodology where DORA is part of everything they do, including the SREP assessment. So it is in the methodology already, even though not a major activity is being planned thematically. I think with that, I will thank you all very much for your participation. Thank you very much for your active engagement, your proposals for topics for the committee to handle going forward, and the questions that you have raised to us.
Okay.
Pascal, is there anything you want to add before we close?
Thank you to all of you. And for those that want a CPA certificate, please fill in your details in Slido. It will be open until tomorrow. So tomorrow morning is fine as well. Thank you, VP. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you, Paco. Thank you for the good
Thank
discussion.
you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. We look forward to see you in upcoming sessions. Bye.